so let's go ahead and get started on our album construction. I am using the easy wrap or lay flat method that was designed by Tamra, who is the owner of countrycraftcreations.com. And I do a few little modifications to it, but she is the creator of this method, and I want to make sure I give her full credit for that. I will have a link to her video in the description notes below for you to check out how she creates these albums. And I'm going to run through mine pretty quickly because I have another video that I did on how I construct my albums, and I will link that if you want any more detailed information. So we're going to very quickly run through the construction of this album. And for this, you're going to need one piece of cardstock that is 5 inches by 6.5 inches and 2 pieces that are 6.5 by 8.5. You are also going to need 2 pieces of chipboard, and I am using the heavyweight chipboard that is available at countrycraftcreations.com, but I have found that it is very similar in weight and in strength to the medium weight chipboard that's available in other places. So, you know, use what you've got, but I do go ahead and purchase this from countrycraftcreations.com, and on her site, it's called heavyweight chipboard. So just wanted to point that out. And I've got one that is 4.5 or I'm sorry, I've got 2 that are 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches, and I've got one that's 2 inches by 4.5 inches, and that's going to be for our spine. So we're going to begin with our spine piece, unwrapping that. And in this method, you create some wings on the sides, and that's what attaches your front and back cover to the spine. So you are going to use a 1.5 inch spacer on the side and a 1 inch spacer on the top. That's going to give us a 1 inch at the top and bottom and 1.5 inches on either side. And that's how we're going to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and apply some glue on my chipboard. And again, I use art glitter glue for everything. Well, I take that back. I use liquid glue for everything, but I kind of go back and forth between art glitter glue and reptile glue. I feel that they're very similar in their properties, and I do like both of those. But I know other people use different adhesives. I've seen people make these albums with boy, I got a lot of glue on that one. Don't do that. I've seen people make these albums with Scor Tape or, you know, some sort of a dry adhesive. I've seen them make it with, what is it? The Barely Art glue. You do what works best for you. This is just what I've chosen to do. And so we're going to go ahead and glue that on there, and using those spacers makes it so handy because it just automatically centers it there on that piece of paper. I'm going to turn it over so that the right side or the covered side is facing up. And I just take a bone folder and rub right along the sides of that chipboard to sort of start training the paper to go around it. Stand it up, bend it over on itself, and give it a nice firm crease. And we're going to do that on all 4 sides. And then in this method, we're going to cut out the corners. So on the spine, it's going to be a rectangle that we cut out. On the front and back cover, it's going to be a square. The front and back cover has a 1 inch reveal around. And that's how we're going to remove some of this bulk so that we can wrap the cardstock around the chipboard. So I'm just going to very quickly take out these rectangles. Then I'm going to go around and I'm going to give it a very slight miter before gluing the top and the bottom down to the chipboard to wrap around. We're going to leave the sides free, almost like a little wing on the sides. Get this one. And come over here on these sides, just making sure I don't have any nubbies sticking out. Like I said, if you want to go check out that other video that I did, I go into a little more detail, and I will link Tamra's video down here as well. I've seen many other designers use this method, and it's just all of them say that it's basically their favorite method. So Once we've got those done, we're going to go ahead and apply some glue right up next to the chipboard. And then on the rest of this cardstock, I like to stand it up, give it a little wiggle, bend it over, smooth it all into place. Really spreading that glue out here. Boy, I got a lot on this one. Don't do that. If you do get extra, you can just scrape it off there with your bone folder. And then again on this side, I think I had just cleaned out my tip, and I think I must have had a little water in there because the glue's really flowing. There we go. Bend it over. Squish it down. Smooth it over. Okay. Now, once we've got that in place, yep, that looks good. We're going to turn it back over to the right side, and I'm just going to, again, take my bone folder and press that paper down so it's really wrapping along the side of that chipboard. And what I want to do is I want to make it so that the paper is flush with the bottom side of the chipboard and creating a ridge along there. That's where we're going to attach our front and back cover. So I'm going to set that to the side. And then we're going to grab our scoreboard again, put our paper down, and this time we're only going to use the 1-inch spacers at the top and the bottom. And again, if I'm going too fast for you, feel free to click on that link and watch Tamra's video, or you can watch the video that I made that I go a little bit more in detail on kind of the hows and the whys that I do, the steps that I do. And like I said, you may find that you think, wow, that's a lot of extra steps and I don't want to have to do all that, and that's just fine. You wrap your album how you want to wrap your album. I'm just showing you a version. So we're going to go ahead and place that down, remove our spacers, give this a nice firm little burnishing. I'm really trying to spread all of that glue evenly underneath here. Then I like to take my bone folder around the side. Any glue that might seep out, I'm going to remove it. There we go. Turn it over. We're doing the same thing. We're going to kind of run this bone folder along the side. This step is almost like it's almost like a scoring process before the fold. You know, we're kind of getting the fibers ready to move in that way. I would be a little more careful with this paper if it weren't the artisan cardstock. You might go a little slower in your folding process if you have a paper that's prone to cracking. With the artisan, I'm able to just really kind of plop it over and give it a nice firm burnishing, and it is none the worse for wear on that. So, and then on this one, we're going to cut the squares out. And this one, we are not going to leave those wings open. We're going to wrap the entire thing. So we're just wrapping the paper all the way around the chipboard for the front and back cover. Now I'm going to finish this one, and then I will fast forward through the second one. Because like I said, I have a longer video on this whole process. If you are interested in more on that. So I'm going to give it a little slight trim, clean these up, and go back around the other side. And then this is where I do a little extra step here. I'm going to take this miter tool, and I just love this little tool. I'm going to set it down here, take my finger blade, and just cut these little corners off of here, these little triangles. For me, it reduces some bulk in those corners, and I really like, I like how my album comes together when there's not extra bulk in those corners. So I do this little step, and then the combination of doing the step where I'm cutting off the corners, the square corners out of here, the square corners out of here, in addition to mitering them, makes it so I don't have to do that step where you have to squeeze that little piece of paper in the corner. I don't like having to do that. So This is my lazy way of figuring out how to not have to do that. And so then we're just going to go around the same thing, put some glue right up against that chipboard. Add some extra glue on the rest of it. Stand it up, flip it over, press it out. Wow, I really do have glue running everywhere today. You guys won't do that. I did that. You won't do that. I think it was because I cleaned out that glue tip and I must not have gotten it completely dry. And I don't know why. There's no real reason for doing it this way, but I like to wrap my short ends first and then my long ends. I don't know. I mean, is there a benefit? Probably not. It's just, I'm a creature of habit. So I'm going to come along here, spread this all out. Get these other sides, and this is where you're going to see the benefit, or at least I see the benefit of cutting out both the square and the mitered corner, because I don't have to fidget with that little piece, that little nubby that doesn't go where it's supposed to go, and the kind of extra that comes out. Spread this out. Get any extra glue off of there that we can. And then we have a nice little perfect corner with a reduced bulk. So there's not a lot of bulk on that. And so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to repeat the exact same steps for the other cover piece, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have wrapped the pieces for my front and back cover. If you get any glue on anything, one of these little rubber erasers that I purchased at Dollar Tree, these work wonders and they just get it right off, especially with the artisan cardstock. It doesn't rip the paper at all, but it just lifts up that adhesive. Super nice. So the way this goes together is the front and back cover are attached to the spine here. Remember, we pressed down that paper to create this groove, and so these front and back covers are just going to get glued down here. I use liquid glue. If you choose to use Scor Tape or something like that, you can do that too. So I'm going to go ahead and glue those down. Okay, so I have attached my front and back cover to my spine. I do leave these clamps on here for just a little bit of time, just so that it can kind of set those corners. That's probably long enough, in fact. And so we've got the base of our album is constructed. Let's go ahead and move on to the hinges. Okay, and so for the hinges, you are going to need a piece that's 5 3/4 by 4 1/4. And then I do a gusseted hinge attachment. And if you choose to do that as well, you're going to need a piece that's 4 1/2 by 4 1/4. So on the hinges for the 5 3/4 by 4 1/4 inch piece. You're going to place it in your scoreboard with 5 3/4 of an inch at the top of the scoreboard, and you're going to score at 3/8 of an inch. Get this in here. 3/8 of an inch there. 1 inch. 1 5/8. 2 1/4. 2 7/8. 3 3.5. 4 1/8. 4 3/4, and 5 3/8. And what it basically is it is a 3/8 of an inch on either side, and each one of them are then you're going to score every 5/8 of an inch, and that's going to give you 3 hinges and 2 gussets that are all 5/8 of an inch high and wide, respectively. Okay. And then what we're going to do is a series of mountain and valley folds. The 2 end pieces, the 2 3/8 of an inch wide scored pieces, are going to be folded as a valley. And I like to do them first because for whatever reason it feels like on those smaller pieces, if I stand the paper up and push it, I've got a little more leverage. And then the first set of hinges are going to be a mountain fold. And then we've got 2 valleys on either side of the gusset. Oh, and I just realized I wrote on the wrong side of this. I'm gonna have to go the other side, so it'll be fine. I'm just gonna fold them all back the other way and start the folding process again because I don't want the writing to show. Okay, so that would make, this is gonna be our first hinge. And then valley. Mountain. And I am just periodically checking to make sure that my sides are straight, that I'm not running off on a tangent here. So I've got that one. This one needs to be moved back this way. Like that. Okay, and so what you're going to come up with here is a hinge system that will, when folded correctly, will just sort of nestle into each other. If any of you have ever done any quilting or sewing when you you lock your seams, you know, when I'm trying to like sew 2 pieces together, my 2 quilt blocks together, and I set it so that my seam allowance is turned opposite sides and it locks those seams so it's flat. That's what's happening here. And I like it when my gussets are the same size or the same width as the height of my my hinges, because I can sort of lock them in and I know that I am straight and true and I've got the same width from top to bottom on my hinge system. So now I'm going to go in here and apply glue between each of the hinge pieces, leaving the gusset pieces just flat. And I'll be right back. Okay, so I have finished my hinge construction, and if you want a fixed spine, meaning you want your hinge and your pages attached directly to the spine, then you would just simply stop here and we would go on to the next step. But if you want to use the gusseted hinge attachment that I created, then we're gonna do this next step here together. So for that one, you need a piece that is 4.5 inches wide by 4.25 inches tall. And that's because our pages are 4.25 inches tall. Our hinges that we created are going to be 4.25 inches tall. I'm glad I checked that. I had that in there wrong. So 4.5 inches wide, 4.25 inches tall. And you are going to score it according to these measurements here. So since I wrote on here, I'm going to turn that around to the back so that I've got that on the back side. You are going to score at 1 inch. And again, 4.5 inches at the top, 1 1/8, 1 1/4, 3 1/4, 3 1/8, and 3 1/2. And what that is going to give us is that's going to give us a 2-inch section across the front here. That's where our hinges are going to be attached. It's going to give us 2 1/8 inch wide gussets that we're going to create in kind of an accordion fold on either side, and 1 inch on either side that is going to then attach to the spine itself. So again, I go into a little more detail in the video that I'll have linked below if you want to kind of look at this a little bit more closely. But since I had several of you comment that you wanted more information on the kind of expandable hinges, or the what I'm calling a gusseted hinge attachment. Expandable hinges is less words. Maybe I should do that. But I think there's other version of expandable hinges, and that's not what this is. It's not like the hinge itself has an extra bend to it. This is a attachment system that's going to allow the pages to kind of move freely from a fixed spot on the spine. And it's really similar to kind of old book building techniques where, you know, if you look at an old book, you have the pages aren't necessarily fixed to the spine in the center. There's a curvature to them. And that's what we're trying to create here. So what I have done is on these scores that I put on the side here, those 1/8 of an inch scores, they are going to be folded mountain, valley, mountain, mountain, valley, mountain. I've gone ahead and folded and burnished both of the mountain folds on that. I'm going to set it down on my, my work surface, and I'm going to take a tool. You can use your bone folder, you can use your scoring tool, and I'm just going to gently, I'm going to apply a little pressure from the top here. Careful not to squish it down, but I'm going to start gently moving back and forth here right along that score line that I created. And as I do so, the paper is going to want to start falling down upon itself. It's going to take the path of least resistance, which is that score line that we created. And this is how I have found to be a very easy way for me to get those teeny tiny little 1/8 of an inch folds, because it's hard to do that. It's hard to fold those 1/8 of an inch creases without them becoming crooked. And if I do this, then I get a straight line every time. And so this is what I'm basically creating here. I hope you can see that. It is a kind of an accordion gusset here on the side. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now I've got those folded just the way I want them to be. So I've got my hinges ready and my hinge attachment system ready. I'm going to go ahead and attach them to one another. And how this works is the hinges are going to be glued directly onto that 2-inch place there right on in the middle of this hinge attachment system. And I need this to be fully laminated. What I mean by that is I need it to really become one with that paper, both the underneath side of the hinges where the gussets are and this hinge attachment system. So I'm going to apply my glue all over the back of this hinge unit that we've got here. Now it's going to look like a lot of glue because the white is really showing up on the brown paper. But it's not a lot of glue, it's just a lot of coverage. And so I'm doing a very thin sort of scratch of glue all along the back. I want every single spot on this paper to be covered with glue, or at least once it gets spread out to all of, be evenly coated with the adhesive, okay? So I'm running this all along here. I'm gonna keep going. Please excuse, I don't know if you can hear that beeping. It's my oven. It's telling me that it is finished. And I may have to go turn it off here in just a minute. But you know how it goes with this glue. Once you start putting it on, you can't stop. So I don't want it to dry on the back of this. So, okay, so we've got a full coverage of glue. Again, it's thin bead, but it's all over. And I'm simply going to center it directly onto this piece here, making sure not to go over into the gussets. It is the exact same size as that piece, so I shouldn't have any problems. If for some reason your hinge system, your hinges itself are a little bit wider, which happens sometimes because in the process of folding the paper, you sort of stretch the fibers. Simply do a dry fit before you put on the glue and trim off a little bit from those 3/8 of an inch gussets on either side, and that will work just fine. If you have any glue seeping out, that's, again, I've said this before, I don't think of that as necessarily a bad thing because it tells me it gets all the way to the edge. Just clean it up. So I had a little tiny bit seeping out there. I'm just gonna scrape it off with my bone folder. And then I am just gonna work between these hinges right up next to that fold, making sure that I have complete contact. I'm checking here to make sure I don't have any gaps, and I don't, but I do want to work it just a little bit more firmly. That's where I'm going to come in with this Teflon bone folder. I just like the angle of it. And you guys, I'm sure, have tools too that have, they fit in a certain place easier than others. And I do like this Teflon bone folder here. I purchased this at countrycraftcreations.com. I believe they still have some there. I will check, and if they do, I will put that in the link below as well. It's a really great tool. Check to make sure it all looks good. So now I'm gonna go one side and then fold back to the other side, really working those hinges. And I am very happy with that. So now I've got my hinges glued down to my hinge attachment system here. I'm going to go ahead and give another fresh crease to that fold that we created in that accordion fold. And the good thing about kind of doing that, doing the fold beforehand is there's almost a memory to the fibers, and they'll go right back to that position once you fold them again. Now I did notice I've got a little tiny bit of overhang here. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to trim just a tiniest bit off of that, but not too much. Just this little corner here. Just kind of, there we go. Got that trimmed off. And we're good to go. So now I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to go deal with my oven, and I'll be right back. Okay, so oven situation taken care of. I've got dinner in the oven. And so now we are going to finish up our album construction. We had just attached the front and the back to the spine. And again, this method of Tamra Merrill's to construct the album with this lay flat method, it's just a game changer. I love this so much. I mean, look at this. I can fold this all the way over. I'm never going to have it rip or tear or crack in any way. It's just amazing. So what we will need is we're going to need some Scor tape, and we're going to need a piece. We're going to attach some double-sided adhesive to the back of this and glue it down, and that's going to give this some structure, because right now it's just kind of all willy-nilly. And again, that's why I prefer this particular brand of tape. I purchased this also at countrycraftcreations.com. I will link all of that in the description notes below. But, oh, that's not one. I save all my little scraps of it, can you tell? And so this piece here is a scant 4 1/4, and that's the height here. I want it to be just barely underneath a 4 1/4 inches tall. And then I've started increasing the width. I used to do the same width here as the wings, and I started increasing that width. And interestingly enough, I saw another one of the designers on Country Craft Creations do a similar thing. And so I'm wondering if she had the same issues that I was having with that, which is it just created a ridge of bulk right here if it both ended at the same spot. So I've been bringing it out a little bit past that. So I'm at 8 inches on this one. It can be whatever width you want, just as long as it goes past that that hinge here, where the front and back cover connect to the spine, and you can make it whatever width you want. But so what I do is I just peel back a corner, and I'm going to take my my piece of paper, and I'm going to gently find the very tip of the corner, and then I'm going to line it up with the sides. Oops. And lay it down. And once I've got that in place, I'm going to go ahead and pull the rest of this back. I use a finger blade. Peel this back. And I just very gently run it along the edge of the paper. If you're afraid you might slip or something, you can always line up with a ruler, but I find that if I just gently run it along that edge, it does just fine. And then I'm going to take the rest of it here. I'm just going to fill it in with the other pieces. I really prefer the 8.5 by 11 inch sheets, and just because I like the big flat sheets on them. But this is what I had for now. So let's do this one. Line that up. And so it doesn't matter that it's pieced in place. You can use the tape rolls if you have them. You can use the sheets like I'm using. However you want to do that. But I have found, oops, I got off on an angle on that one. I have found that for me, this particular brand, the Suquane or Scor, what is it? The Scor Tape trademark by Scor, that this brand really does make a difference for me in constructing my albums. Okay, so we've got that. Now, it doesn't really matter that this is necessarily centered. We just have to get it on here top to bottom. And I like to use my fingers. This is a feel thing. I can sort of feel if a certain amount of reveal on either side of my fingers when it's on there. And once I get it about where I want it to be, oh wait, first you want to make sure you burnish this down really well, because you want that adhesive to really bond with the back of that paper. You don't want any air bubbles or anything in that. And then I'm going to use my brand new pokey tool. Oh my gosh. My friend Cindy, she's got a Creative Chaos by Sin. I'm going to have her Etsy shop linked below as well. She made this for me. How pretty is this? I'm getting ready to go to a retreat, and it is carnival themed. And she even put my initial on here, and has a little a circus tent, and there's a monkey, and it says 2022. And I just love this so much. I wish I had taken a video when I opened the packaging. I've never received anything so beautifully packaged. It was all pink and pretty, and it was just so nice. And this is a hand sewn case for it that she makes that accompanies it. And look at these sweet little charms. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. Anyway, sorry, I had to take a little brief aside there and talk about her amazing products that she makes. And so I'm going to go ahead and take off both of these small pieces. I don't usually do that, but And then I'm gonna, since I've got them pieced together, I'll do that. Then I'm just gonna do a corner of that one. Okay. And then again, I'm gonna just try to find my center top to bottom, just with my fingers. And I'm sort of hovering over here. When I get it about where I want it to be, go ahead and press it down, and then I'll peel off the rest of that. And make sure I really give it a good burnishing. I want all of that to stick down. Run my bone folder all along every edge. And then I'm going to find my crease here and just gently start increasing the acuteness of the angle as I'm running that back and forth. And I'm really working that and the glue, that dry adhesive, into that groove. Do the same thing on the other side. Just continue to move that back. Just keep going until I get it all the way up. And then I'm just going to bend it all the way over. Again, there is no risk of me popping this paper or, having it tear at all. I just love it. Look at that. Isn't that fantastic? So it looks like I've got a little tiny bit of adhesive here that I want to clean up. I'm going to use there we go, came it right off. Use this little rubber eraser here, and it just sort of rubs that extra adhesive off. That's good. This side all looks good. I am very happy with that. So now that we've got our album, and see, it's not as, I can grab it without it just slipping so much now. So now that we've got our album wrapped, attached to the spine, and then I've got the inside spine cover in place, now we can go ahead and attach our hinges. Now, if you didn't want to do the hinge attachment system thing that I've created here, then you would just glue your hinges directly on here. If you want to try this though and give it a try, this is how you're going to do that. Before I glue it down, I want to clean up some of this. It's a little easier to work with there. There we go. Okay. So how I glue this down is I just hold it by the hinges. I'm going to take my glue bottle and I'm going to apply glue to one of the 1-inch side pieces here, the ones that fold around to the back. Oh, there we go. And I'm going to do it the same way I attach the hinges to the hinge attachment, the gusseted hinge attachment, where I'm going to not put a lot of glue, but a lot of coverage of glue. So now I'm just scratching it around, sort of spreading it. And I just want it to be fully covered all over the back of this, because I want the fibers of the paper to truly bond together as if they were one, to truly laminate together as a single unit. Think of like how plywood is sort of laminated together. Okay, so then I like to turn it this way. No, actually I'm going to go this way. And it's going to go all the way to the edge. Just make sure you don't cover that seam, you know, where this opens and closes. But it is going to go all the way to the edge. I'm going to check and make sure I'm not over on that side. I am good. And I'm just centering it top to bottom, I suppose, and left to right, but it really does fill the entire hinge piece here. So there's not a lot of centering left to right that's going to be done. There is a top to bottom centering that's happening here. Okay. And then I'll flip it open and just give it a really good burnishing. I know I've said this before. I think I even said it before in this video. I like it to see a little bit of glue come out the edges. Not a lot, but I do like to see a little bit of glue come out the edges, because it tells me that I've got it all the way to the edge. And I can always scrape it off, or once it dries, I can kind of rub it off with this eraser. But that tells me that this is completely, I have full contact, and it's going to bond completely. Okay, I think we're good there. I didn't have any seep out here, which is great. I know we're all the way to that edge. Okay, so now we're going to just repeat the steps here. And we're going to cover this 1-inch piece here completely with glue. Not a lot, but just making sure I've got it all over. There we go. And then I'm going to sort of feel for this to slide and butt up against that other piece that we just glued down. And once it hits that other piece, then I'm going to go ahead and start pressing down. Making sure I've got it really connected. I'm going to come in between there and just really give it a nice firm, here, this one will probably work better. Give it a nice firm pressing. There we go. Got a little tiny bit of glue coming out here. And we are good to go. So now what we have is we have our hinges attached to this unit here that allows it to pull away from the spine and just gives it some freedom of motion, even left to right, with that accordion fold there on it. So now we're ready to go ahead and put our pages on. And for the pages, because these are 6 1/4 inches by 4 1/4 inch pages, I felt like that the most economical use of paper would be to start with a 4 1/4 by 12 inch piece of paper. And then we're just going to add on a little 1-inch strip at the end that we're going to use to attach to this. It's not going to add a lot of crazy amount of bulk. It's not going to be in the way, but it's just going to be a really clean look with a lot less paper. So rather than having 2 pieces that we're attaching together, we're just going to go this way with it. So let me set this aside, grab my scoreboard, and on the 3 pieces of 12 inches by 4 1/4 inches, we are going to score them at 6 1/4 inches. For all 3 of them. Oh, I did that at 6 1/2. I need 6 1/4. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Oh, 6 1/4. Good grief, Caroline. Okay, you score them at 6 1/4. All right, and then we are going to fold and burnish along those score lines, making sure that our tops and bottoms are flush along each side here. Six 1/4. And that little mistake score line that I made, you're not going to even see it. It's going to get covered with paper, so it'll be fine. And 6 1/4. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this little strip, this 1 inch by 4 1/4 inch strip, and we are going to line it up so that it meets on the right and left side and the bottom of this here. So if we open this up, it should meet along here. It looks like mine's a little bit long, and that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and glue it down first, and then I'll trim it up because it'll be an easier way for me to do that. So I'm just going to get that put in place here, and then I'm going to apply some glue on the back side of the shorter piece here, and I'm going to scooch it over to the half an inch mark on my what is this? My cutting mat. And I'm going to put glue right along the very edge, and then I'm going to come like 3/8 of an inch in with some glue. Okay. And then on this piece, I'm gonna, on one of the edges, I'm gonna just put glue right along the very edge. Okay, and that's the one that we're going to line up here. And kind of line it up so that we've got top, bottom, and that side is straight. Fold it over, burnish it down, and we now have a perfectly attached extension for that little piece of paper. Kind of clean this up a little bit. And as you can tell, I've got a bit of an overhang here, so I'm just gonna trim that off. Okay. So now these are going to be ready to attach to our hinges in our book. I'm going to go ahead and glue down the rest of them the same way, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now we've got our 3 pages made, and we're going to go ahead and attach them to our book. I know some people like to decorate their pages first. Like I said before, this is just how I'm doing it. Everything I'm showing you here today is just how I have found works for me. But if you have another way of doing it, you do it that way, and it'll be just great. Okay, so what I like to do is I am placing the kind of attachment into the back. It doesn't really matter, but that's just what I'm doing. And I'm sliding it right up next to this hinge. And then when I fold the hinge down over on itself, it kind of pushes it out a little bit. And that's going to give me just the amount of reveal that I need to kind of pull it away from the hinge itself. And I like that. I'm looking to see if I have an even reveal on the top and the bottom, and I do. Yep, that looks good. And then I'm going to fold it back the other way. I'm sort of pressing it into the hinge. And I want to check to see, and we're good. We are all good. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it in here, fold it back over itself, make sure that I am in a place that I like the positioning of it. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to apply glue to the very edge of the page. And then I'm going to apply glue about 2/3 of the way down on my hinge. There we go. Make sure I'm where I want it to be. Right now. Bring this over. Pressing it down into place. Give it a really good burnishing. And my hinges are the same height as my pages. So I don't have any difference between that. It's all going to become a singular unit here. So now I'm going to come back this way and just double check, make sure. Yep, it all looks really good. So now on this side, I'm going to do the same thing on the hinge portion, where I'm going to apply glue towards the top of the hinge. And then I'm going to come down about 2/3 of the way. Okay. And then I'm going to take glue all the way across the bottom, because we're going to create a pocket at the top here. And then I'm going to bring glue right down the edge. And then we're just going to press it into place. Give it a nice firm burnishing. Seal up these edges here. I'm sure you guys do this too. I have different tools that I'll reach for different things, and this one just kind of needed that Teflon tool for some reason. It's heavier. There's a heavier weight to it, so when I'm really trying to press something, I find that it's easier for me to press it with this. For some reason, it doesn't feel like I have to press quite as hard. There we go. And so I've got page 1 done. And then I'm just going to keep going with all of the other pages in the same way. Press it right up against the edge of that hinge. Fold the hinge over. It kind of pushes the hinge, or pushes the page out just ever so slightly. Make sure I'm lined up top and bottom and that my pages are lining up with each other, and they are. Open it up. Push the hinge back, apply the glue towards the top of the hinge, come down 2/3 of the way, fill in the space between, apply a thin bead of glue along the edge there of the page, fold it over, press it down, and we're just going to repeat all the same steps, and I'll be right back. Okay, so we have our pages attached to our hinges that are also attached to our gusseted hinge attachment here. So it allows them to open and move away from the spine of the book when you have lots of bulky things on your pages. So I love it. It's been a real game changer for me, and I just really love doing it. If it's not for you, don't do it. Do it the way you do it. So the next thing that we are going to work on now is I like to go ahead and put my my papers on my front and back cover. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And since I am going to add a ribbon closure to this, I want to go ahead and put that on first before I forget. So I'm going to get my centering ruler here, and I'm just going to center it right here. Put a piece of tape down right in the middle so I know where the center is. And do that on the other side too. Right in the center. And then I've got a piece of ribbon here. They're going to be about 13.5 inches long each. I just grabbed a big chunk of ribbon and I'm cutting it in half. But I think anywhere from 10 to 12 inches usually where I like to go. If you're nervous about it being too short, you know, always err on the side of having it longer rather than shorter. And then I'm going to come over about 1 inch. I want it to really be sort of embedded in there. And then I'm going to go over it with another piece of tape. And just sort of sandwich it in there. And because I don't want to have to fidget with lining up the 1/2 inch piece of tape exactly with the other 1/2 inch piece of tape, I'm choosing to use a 1 inch piece of tape as my second piece to go over the top. And that is the only reason. There is no other reason other than I just don't want to have to take the time to be precise on this. So you do it however you can, I guess. That's what we all do, right? So I'm gonna get this one on, just burnish it down. And then for this album, I had used a cut apart that was part of an ephemera package that came with it. And I don't have any other large pieces like that. I only had one ephemera pack. I've got 2 of the 6x6 paper pads for this collection, but I only had one of the ephemera packs. So what I am going to do is I cut out the center part of the other collection. So that on the title page here, it said Celebrate Spring, right? And I covered up, it was by Lori Whitlock, and I covered up her name using some of the flower stickers that were on this sticker sheet. So I pulled these flower stickers off and covered that up. And I saw that idea from Carolina over at Carolina's Crafts, and I can't remember what it was. I think it was like a baby album or something she did, where she used that front piece as a decorative element, and in order to cover up the writing on here, she just put some other elements over there, and I thought, wow, that's super smart. So I cut that out. I will say that when using, some of these title pages are the same weight and type of paper as the actual pattern paper, and some of them aren't. This is one that isn't. This is one that's very shiny, very thin. I did use liquid adhesive around the edges when I glued it down, but I used dry adhesive in the middle because I was afraid that it would buckle and warp. And so I'm really glad that I made that decision because I didn't want it to have any buckling or warping in the middle, because it is a slightly different texture, And then I glued it down onto some brown artisan cardstock. I ran it through my ScanNCut. I removed that from the ScanNCut. I then increased the border on that scan and put a piece of pink paper in, ran it through again, and attached it on the back. And so that's how I was able to get this matting effect to it. So I felt that this was similar enough to the one that I used on the other album. So that's what we're going to do here. And the rest of it I'm going to do very similarly. I did cut out a couple of flower petals that I'm going to assemble here for just a little bit of an accent at the top, like I did on this one. And I used, for the center, I'm going to use this sugar-coated brad in the lily white color from Doodlebug. These are so cute. They are glittery and sparkly and just adorable, and it makes a great center for that flower. So that's going to be attached up here at the top. And then for the bottom down here, because I had cut that out of another piece that I don't have anymore, I think I'm going to just attach this, All Right Spring, Do Your Thing. No, I don't really love that one. Hold on a second. Let me find something else. Okay, I think I'm going to do this little birdhouse instead. I think it's smaller in size and it will still fit down here. I am going to put a white strip across here with some ribbon on the top and bottom. I don't have any more of this cording, so that's why I'm not using that again. And then for the back, I had just put a couple of these little, flags here with one of the circle elements. And so I think I'm going to do a similar little cluster of these, and this time use the one with the bee. And I think that will be really cute. So I'm going to just work on this. I'm going to put it in fast forward mode. And so you'll see me putting all of that together so that I can get the back completed. I will say one thing about the way I mat this. So I've got a double matting on this. If you want to do a single matting, it's totally fine. I am cutting my first layer so close to the actual size, it has the tiniest reveal around there. And that's just personal preference. It's like, that's how I like to do it. But if you want to have a little bit more wiggle room on that, you don't want it to be quite as close, you can simply adjust your measurements accordingly. The good thing about the way I cut them is that if you cut them and you decide, ooh, that's a little too big, you can always trim some of it off. I'm not giving you measurements that are going to be too small, that's for sure. But I would just recommend that you dry fit it and make it so that it fits your particular taste and how you like to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and attach these on here and fast forward with some music while I do that, and I'll be back in just a minute.
seems like you like me too. We can take it slow, make sure we do this right. Canceled all my plans to be with you tonight. So just sit with me, talking to the night until the morning, building chemistry. I don't think I ever wanna go, come closer next to me. Trying to find another way to say this, but I think we were meant to be. You make me anxious. I think I might be stuck on you. All of the things you did for me, it seems like you're dropping clues. There's no need to rush, so let's just take our time. Dropping everything, 'cause you're stuck on my mind. So just sit with me, talking to the night until the morning, building chemistry. I don't think I ever wanna go, come closer next to me. Trying to find another way to say this, but I think we were meant to be. Oh, we were meant to be. Oh, we were meant to be. Sit with me, talking through the night until the morning, building chemistry. I don't think I ever wanna go, come closer next to me. Trying to find another way to say this, but I think you were meant to be with me, talking to the night until the morning, building chemistry. I don't think I ever wanna go, come closer next to me. Trying to find another way to say this, but I think we were meant to be.
Okay, so I have completed putting our decorative elements on our front and back cover and spine, and I was going to do the little strip across here with the paper, and I got in a hurry attaching everything, and I forgot that I went ahead and attached down that piece of yellow pattern paper because I was actually going to wrap that ribbon around there, and I don't know that it really needs it, so I'm just going to leave it off. I love the way that little brad looks, these little sugar-coated brads. It's so cute. And these turned out pretty good over here too. For the flowers, I used this punch as well as this little Fisker's punch here too for the centers. And I just think it looks super cute. I went ahead and kind of went with a less is more attitude on this. And all I did was add just a little bow over here on the front cover. And then, I don't know if you noticed or not, but when I was putting down this bee and this other banner, I did cut a couple little strips of that brown artisan cardstock to back it so that everything was flush. So the it's level. It's not going off on one side or the other. So I'm really happy with that. The other thing that I started to make a little mistake on here and caught in time was I started putting the glue on this piece of cardstock instead of this one, and I caught it really quickly, and this is a much smaller piece, and so I went ahead and attached that on the front inside cover, which is just great. And then I've got this little piece of ephemera that I'm going to put down here for the tuck spot. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that down, and I just glue it on two sides, just right there on that corner. And then once that dries, then we're able to tuck photos or photo mats or little tags or what have you is kind of in there. And I think it's a great way to address that front cover. I like putting a pocket or some sort of a tuck spot on that front and back and or back cover. One of them, because it's just a nice place to tuck some things, you know, if you had some extra pictures or some other stuff like that. So once that sets, we are going to be good to go. And then I think I'm going to use this as the other decorative element on this other side. So for page 1, and this is going to be page 1, I've numbered them this way. I've got the front inside cover, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, and then the back inside cover. So you'll notice that on the cutting guide. So for page 1, you're going to need one piece that is 3 3/4 inches by 3 3/4 inches, and two pieces that are 5 3/4 by 4 3/4 inches. I'm going to set this aside here and grab our scoreboard. Oh, got some stuff stuck to it. And we are going to score on the 5 3/4 by 4 3/4 inch side. We're going to put the 4 3/4 at the top and score at 1/2 inch or 4 1/4. Either way gets you there. And then on the one that is 3 3/4 by 3 3/4, we're going to score at 1/2 inch on one of the sides. So 1/2 inch in there like that. And then we're going to take our corner rounder, and on the sides opposite of our score mark, we are going to do a 1/4 inch quarter round, and you can do whatever, you know, whatever preference you have. This is just the style that I like. I like to round the corners because it does give it a good finished edge, but it also just keeps it looking nice for a while. You know, those sharp corners get banged up pretty easily. So it just kind of keeps your pages and your elements looking crisp and clean, even when they've been manhandled by toddlers and children and grown women like myself. So it's easy to kind of bang up those corners like that. So then we're going to get our book back over here. And on page 1, we are going to attach this. Is going to be a closure element that's going to be attached at the very bottom. And we're going to center that. And then these are going to stack on top of each other and be attached at the top in the center. So let me get my ruler out here. And I'm going to find my center. And we'll see. First of all, let's find the center of this page. So 3 3/4, the center of 3 3/4 is, it's going to be 1 7/8. So then I like to just come up on here and find the center of my page, which is 3 1/8. And then I'm just going to make a little tick mark here at the 1 7/8 point. And that just kind of lets me know where I need to glue that down. So I am going to slightly miter these. I don't know that it really needs it, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to put some glue on that 1/2 inch flap. Oh shoot, I just remembered something. Did I gusset that one? I did a gusset on it. Hold on. We'll just wipe that glue off. Okay. That's how you fix it. I'm gonna wipe that glue off, and then we're gonna also score this at 5/8 of an inch. So we scored it at 1/2 and at 5/8 of an inch. Let me make sure I got that on the instructions that I wasn't following. Each one, score at 1/2 and 5/8. Yep, that's all my instructions. I just didn't, you have to read the instructions. I wrote them, but apparently I didn't read them. So we're going to kind of create this 1/8 of an inch gusset here. And that is going to allow for room, not just for the pages that this is going to sort of help hold in place, but also for any, you know, photos that we add on to that. And I like to add that gusset because it makes sure that that magnet is still going to line up. This is going to have a magnetic closure on it. So, okay, so go ahead and put the glue back on that 1/2 inch attachment strip here. And then I'm going to find my little tick mark that I made to help me center this. And I'm lining it up with that bottom score line. Okay, so I'm kind of bending that second score that I just made over on top of itself and just lining it up with that bottom score mark so that I'm flush with the bottom of the page. I'm going to spread all that glue out, kind of stand it up, and that is good to go. And then on these pages here, we're going to glue them down onto the top of the page and center it at the top. But I think I'm actually going to put my pattern paper on there first because it's easier for me to put my pattern paper on a flat surface rather than in the book. And so let me go ahead and get those pieces cut and I'll be right back. I have prepared my pattern paper for page 1 for the flaps. And it was 2 pieces that were 5 3/4 by 4 3/4. On the 4 3/4 inch side, we scored at a 1/2 inch or at 4 1/4, however you want to do that. I went ahead and rounded the corners on these, and they're going to be glued with just one right on top of the other. So it's not like a waterfall where they're glued, you know, a 1/2 inch down from the other one. This is just going to be right on top of the other one. And so I'm applying some glue here to the back side of my flap, and I'm simply going to line it up at the fold line and kind of wiggle it into place. And that's another reason I like using liquid adhesive, because it gives me a little bit of time to maneuver some things, give it a nice firm burnishing. I'm going to open it up and just check that seam, make sure I've got that spread all the way out, clean it up any if I need to. And then I'm going to check to see if I've got any overhang, which I do on this side here. And I'm just going to give it a little, just a tiny little haircut. I could have probably avoided that if I had just given those a slight miter, but this works too. So that is in place. And then I'm going to go ahead and put my pattern paper on. And the pattern paper was cut to, we had 2 pieces that are 2 pieces that are 5 5/8 by 4 1/8. And then I went ahead and rounded one of the corners on the long side, and I inked my edges. I used this Dusty Rose to sort of match the paper. Sometimes I'll ink the edges to match the cardstock that's there, which is what I did around the yellow paper, and then also the base paper. And this one is a honey mustard. It's kind of a darker yellow. Well, it's like a honey mustard. And it sort of blends in there. It just, when you have that white core, I don't like how jarring that is against some darker paper. So I'm just going to glue these down into place, apply a little glue on the backs, and put them on. Just like this. And then I'm gonna, oh wait, before I do that, I need to put down a magnet. I completely forgot. I'm gonna kind of center this, just rough estimate. Let's see, that one is up a little higher. Oh, my glue's gonna dry. Move it up like that. That's good. Okay, now I'm gonna put it down. And my glue looks a little wet, but just to be safe, just scratch a little more on here. There we go. Now line that up, and again, I cut my papers so that they have a very scant reveal around them. It's style. It's a stylistic decision, right? It's the style that I like. If you prefer to have more of a reveal and maybe a little less pattern paper, do that. It's totally fine. This is just the way that I've decided that I like to do it. So I'm gonna get the other piece and glue it down real quick. But I do like to put the pattern paper on these elements before gluing them into the book, if at all possible, because it gives me a flat surface to work on. I'm not kind of fighting amongst the pages either, and I just like it. So get this spread out. There we go, very clean and neat and tidy. And now we're going to attach this into onto our page. Okay, and so I've already cut my pieces that are going to cover that up, but I wanted to center this on the page, and I could measure it, but it's such a small amount of reveal on either side that I'm just going to sort of eyeball that into place. Apply some glue on this back tab. And then I probably am going to put some clamps on this just to make sure that it's adhered really well, because I do have an opening at the top that I'm going to put a page insert into. And I just want to make sure that it's not pulling away from there in any way. Okay, center it here. Scoot it over just a little bit. That looks good. That all looks really good. And then now I'm just going to grab a couple clamps here, and just to hold those fibers in place until it can set, because the glue is, you know, it's water-based glue, and it does cause the fibers to swell. That's part of why it bonds so well. It causes those fibers to swell, and then they almost knit back together with each other. So, you know, that's just the nature of how it works. But to make sure that it stays flat as it's going through that process, I'm just going to toss a couple clamps on here and just hold that into place. That is going to be great. And then I've gone ahead and cut the piece that goes on the base of the page, as well as this little piece that goes on, that covers the gusset for the gusseted hinge attachment. And I tend to, what I do is I overcut the length of that, and then I'll mark and cut that piece off. I'll show you on another one here that I'll do here in just a second, but that's how I prepared this one. I went ahead and inked the edges. I used the honey mustard on these, and that's, you don't have to leave the clamps on long. That's pretty much it. Just that little bit is enough to add that pressure necessary to hold it in place. And yeah, I'm very happy with the way that's looking. That's just fine. And so now we're going to go ahead and glue this piece on, just kind of doing a dry fit first. I like to dry fit pretty much everything. Go ahead and get this on here. Although if you know, as you saw just a little bit ago, I didn't dry fit that other piece that was supposed to go on the front cover. I just grabbed a piece and glued it and started putting it down, and then realized, oh, that's the wrong size. But I was able to salvage it and get it stuck where it needed to be. That was this piece right here. Okay, that looks really good. I just noticed I've got a little bit of a pencil mark here. Get rid of that. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and glue down this little piece that belongs on that gusset over here. I just think it gives it a little continuity to have that sort of, your eye kind of carries through that point. It's not real jarring to have that break there. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and close these. I need to get another magnet to help find where that belongs. I'm going to attach that. Now, if you're using the basic gray magnets, you don't have to use the tape. They have adhesive on the back. I had purchased a bunch of these magnets on Amazon. Honestly, it was accidental. I didn't mean to buy all of them, but I did. And so I'm working my way through all of them before I move on to something else. Now, I've already cut these pieces. I have not inked the edges. I'm going to go ahead and ink them. I already cut and dry fit these pieces, but I'm going to show you the same process on the front of this flap, how I got this little teeny tiny little baby sliver here. And that is going to cover that little bitty 1/8 of an inch gusset that we created here. Now, is this necessary? No. But is it so cute? Yes. And that's what I'm going for right now. So this piece is going to attach here, and then this little piece is going to go in this little bitty gusset right in front of there. So let's put this one down first, since I went ahead and pulled off the backing on my tape. I better go ahead and glue something down before it sticks to itself. Okay. All right, so we're just gonna line this up here. Let it sort of fall down into place. That looks good. Very happy with that. Kind of smoothing that around there. Okay, so now I'm going to open this up so maybe you can see this better. Now this little guy is just going to sit right in here in that little bitty gusset. And actually, ooh, I didn't get him on there right. Hold on. Oh, shoot. Got it a little too close there. There we go. All right, so we're gonna put some glue on here. And then slide it just into this little spot here. And I am gonna burnish this down really well because it's gonna get a lot of action here. But I just love the way that looks. I think it's really clean and neat and tidy. And it just looks great, and it also sort of helps to reinforce having that gusset stand up here. Let me get this down a little better. There we go. Kind of slipped on me. There we go. Very happy with that. Okay, so now on the front piece, we're going to do something very similar. We're going to line this up just like that, and I am going to mark where I want to cut this off for the edge of the front. And then I'm going to lean it forward, and I'm going to make a second mark where that gusset is. And so then I'll take my trimmer and I'm going to trim off the little excess here. So the measurements that you're going to have in your cutting guide are going to be just a little longer than necessary, but that'll allow you to get the right measurements. If you don't want to do this step, it's totally fine. You'll just trim it down a little bit closer and it'll be good to go. Okay, and then we're going to come around this with the pink. Did those sides already. Get this edge. These little tiny pieces, itty bitty tiny pieces. Try not to make a mess. Whoops, too late. There we go. I think it just gives it a nice little finish. So we're gonna put this down. Go ahead and glue that one into place. And sorry if you can hear the background noise. My daughter is doing the dishes, and I don't want to stop her from doing the dishes. I'm grateful for her help. So that is what's going on back there. Okay, and then we're going to take this little piece here and glue it on the front. I'll make sure I've got this lined up. Yep, that's right. Just a little bit of glue here. And let's see if I stand this up, if maybe you could see this a little bit better. So I'm just going to apply this right on that edge, just like that. There we go. And I just like that finish. I think this looks super nice and super clean. Just all neat and tidy looking. There we go. Love it. Love it. So cute. Okay. And so now if we've done it correctly, the magnet catches. Yep. I'm just loving it. I think it looks really cute. This piece is going to go on here as like a, hold on, make sure I got this down. Oops, it slipped on me. There we go. Now I got it. So this piece is going to go down here like another matting layer. I'm going to go ahead and glue this one down. Yep, kids are on walkie-talkies too. So you're getting the full effect of all of the sounds of my house right now. My kids will talk to each other on walkie-talkies in the next room. So, okay. Then I decided that I want to put that one on there. I like the way this looks. In fact, I think I might even like it better than the original one I did. Okay. Okay. Now that we've got this set, I think I'm going to go and address some of the noise in my house real quick, and I will be right back and we will work on page 2. But yeah, this looks really great. We've got page 1. We've got the inside front cover and page 1 now completed. And so I'm going to go handle my business, and I'll be right back, and we are going to start working on pages 2 and 3. See you in a bit. Okay, so I am back. My daughter had to come in to go to the bathroom, so she is she was wearing roller skates and talking on her walkie-talkie while she was coming in. Hopefully she's going back out again. I think that's what's going on. So that's just life. You might hear more of that. So for pages 2 and 3, we have 2 pieces that are 3 1/4 by 2 3/4, 2 pieces that are 6 3/4, or sorry, 6 by 3 3/4, and 2 pieces that are 6 by 4 3/4. And let's reference back here to the original one, and these are going to pull flap down. They have the magnet in them to hold them in place, and then they lift up, and then they lift back down like this. So we have 2 identical pieces of the larger one, the medium one, and the small one. So we are going to score them. Let me get my scoreboard here. So on the 6-inch side, no, I'm sorry, on the 4 3/4 inch side, we're going to score it a 1/2 inch or at 4 1/4 for both of those. For the 2 pieces that are 3 1/4 by 2 3/4, we're going to put it in at the 2 3/4 inch side and score it at 2 1/4. I'm actually going to score it on this side because I just realized my writing comes really close to that end. So 2 1/4, you won't be writing on your paper, so it'll be okay. On both of those, or at 1/2 inch, either way. And then on the 2 pieces that are 6 by 3 3/4, we're going to put it in at the 3 3/4 inch side and score it at 3 1/4 or 1/2 inch. Either way, it's the same thing. Okay. And so we are going to fold and burnish on our score lines. So we've got our medium ones here. Our small ones. And our big ones. We're going to round the corners opposite the fold on the large pieces. And then we're going to round all 4 corners on the medium-sized pieces. And so that means that you are going to round the corners through the fold on the back here. And I'm going to miter that back a little bit too, just so that it doesn't show, but that's what we're doing. Round all 4 of these. And then we're going to round all 4 of the small ones as well. So we're only rounding the corners opposite the fold on the large one. And then on the 2 medium and the 2 small ones, we are going to round all 4 corners, just like that. And then I'm going to take my scissors, and on this, I'm just going to angle just slightly like that. I'm basically going to clip off that little bit of the corner, just so it doesn't get in the way. So put my scissor in there, and I'm just kind of coming out from that inside of that corner rounder piece. Got a little nubby in here. There we go. And then same thing on this one. Just sort of nestling my scissors in and then pivoting them out so I can do a little bit of a 45-degree angle out. And you could do this ahead of time. It's just, I don't know how you would do it. It's, you have to kind of wait till that corner rounder hits it so that you know where to begin the pivot on the scissors. So I always just do that first and then go back in and clean it up with my scissor. Okay, there we go. Now, let's go ahead and cover the paper on these. Let's go ahead and build these units, all except for attaching them into the book. So let's go ahead and build the units, and then we can put the paper on them kind of flat. So this is going to go from the bottom of the page. So we're going to have the fold at the bottom, and then we're going to take the medium-sized one, and we're going to line that fold up right at the very top here and glue that down. So get our glue on here. I know that a lot of people do like to use the Scor tape, and it does move faster, I think, when you use the Scor tape. I just prefer, I don't know, it's just personal preference. I feel like after all the time and effort that I put into building this, I just want it to be really solid. And then also it gives me a little bit of wiggle time. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer, but if you've watched any of my videos, you know I make a lot of mistakes. I don't edit them out. They're in there. And I just think it, I have an easier time with the glue. That's all. I know for some people, they like the tape because they can use the tape remover stuff. I've never used it before. It looks really cool. It's kind of weird. You'll see a piece of paper just get soaking wet with what I think is lighter fluid. I'm not really sure, but yeah. Okay, so I just burnished that down really good and tight. If you feel like it's curling up, add some clamps, but I think we're good to go on this one. And then I'm going to put another one just on top in the center here. So I'm going to line this up and try to find, okay, let's open it up like this. Do this. And I just like to use the lines on my mat. It helps me to get things centered. That's about where I need it to be. And just ignore that other score line there. It's going to get covered with pattern paper. You're never even going to see it. I'm going to rub my bone folder over it here in a little bit to just sort of give it an extra burnishing, but it'll be fine. That's about right. Making sure I'm lined up. Really spread that glue out. Okay. All right, so we've got one unit done. And now we're going to do the other unit. Okay, so now we've got those in place. I'm going to go ahead and add some magnets because we're going through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 7 pieces of paper here by the time all is said and done. We're actually going to use 3 magnets I'm not sure what happened there. I went ahead and built these pages, and then I realized that my phone wasn't recording. So I'm going to kind of go back over what I've just done here. I believe we recorded for both of these. It was working then. And then I was debating whether or not I would put the pattern paper on first or attach it to the page. I chose to attach it to the page because I was trying to make sure that I had my magnets lined up. There is a magnet on the other side of this page. And so because of that, I didn't want my magnet to be off of that. And so I allowed this page to find the magnet behind that page. So that they're not going to be fighting each other. And I did that because if I had maybe set up my magnet just slightly over here, it would have constantly been doing this weird like push-pull thing. And I didn't want that to happen. So now I have my magnet in place on the base of the page. I've attached my page to, I've attached my my fold-out element to my page. And I'm just adding magnets. Now, I think after looking at this and after realizing how many layers of paper we're going to be dealing with, I think that I want to actually do 3 magnets. So I've got a magnet here. There's going to be a piece of paper over that, a piece of paper over this. Conceivably there's going to be photos on these two. And then there's going to be a piece of paper here, a piece of paper here, a piece of paper here. And again, could be photos, could just be journaling, but still there's a lot of layers to go through. So, oops, I did not mean to do that. Okay, I didn't mean to stick it down there like that. I got to talking and I wasn't paying attention. I want to stick it to the back of this element here, because that's what we're going to use to lift it up with, okay? But what I was saying is I want to put another layer of magnets. And I'm thinking it's going to go on this page here. So I'm going to get another magnet here and put it in place. And I'm just using a little one, but it's just enough to carry that, carry the load, I guess, of all the papers and things that I want to be able to add to it. Is that? Yeah. Yeah, that feels much better. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing over here, but this time what I'm going to be concerned with is I want to make sure that this magnet doesn't attach itself to this magnet, because when these pages close, they're going to be really close to each other. So I'm going to put the magnet on here on what it would be attracted to, and then I'm going to flip it over and make sure that I've got it so that it's repelling each other, because otherwise when I go to open and close these pages, it's going to pull them open or they're going to stick together. And when you pull them apart, it's going to pull at the pages. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this one down. And I am lining this up with this lower left corner and the lower right corner. So I'm giving myself some room between there and the hinges, because that's another mistake that a lot of people make. I know that it's a mistake that I made a lot. When you start putting all of these sort of built up elements close to the hinges, pages don't want to open and close. Even with a gusseted hinge attachment system, it still doesn't want to close. So there we go. Got that in place. And we'll just toss a couple clamps on it just to be safe. Okay, so what I want to be able to do is I don't want this magnet to attract to this magnet. So since I've got it like that, if I attach the magnet like this, it would attract, okay? So what I want to do is I want to flip it over, okay? And I want that to be the side that's facing up here. Since I don't have another magnet over here that it's competing with in any way, let's do that for a second. I don't have to worry about lining it up with the page below, but I do want to make sure that I'm not, it's not gonna connect to that other page in front of it. Okay, so take this off. We'll check it. So see, those pages, they actually are kind of pushing away from each other. They're not going to grab. I'm going to be able to open and close the pages. The page is still going to close, okay? It's not like it's going to keep it from closing, but it's going to keep it from grabbing that other flap open every time I try to open the page, if that makes sense. So I put one down there. Let's let that find itself. Close this up. And then we'll put one at the base here. Grab another one. Okay. So it is a lot of magnets. I get that. And you don't have to have them. I mean, there's other ways to do it. Also, you can use some little metal pieces. These are some pieces I bought off of Amazon. They're actually made for like eyeshadow palettes or different makeup palettes. They magnetize into one of those cases that has a magnet bottom to it. They have sticky paper on the back, and they extend your magnet life. I mean, I could have put those in instead of this second magnet, and it would have helped kind of attach everything, because that metal is just going to carry that that pull through it. I hope that makes sense. I feel like I've talked about this enough. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and cut our pattern paper for these. And on this one, we need, well, let me cut them and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have cut my pattern pieces, and all of those measurements are on the cutting guide. But one of the things, and so I've got all those cut, you'll be able to see those on the cutting guide. One of the things that I want to be able to do, though, is I want to be able to put my pattern paper on the base here of this page. And if you notice over here on the original one, I did a continued, like a full piece, right? And it was longer than 12 inches long, so I had to seam it over here on this end. And how I did that was I matched the patterns. And this is a technique that I do a lot. So I wanted to kind of show you how I do it. I'm sure there may be another way to do it. And if there is, if you have another way that's easier, please share it. Share it with the class. We would all like to know. So what I want to do is I want to be able to add more paper onto the end of this piece here. And how I have found that is a good way for me to do that is I use the repositionable tape to line up the pattern on the right side of the paper. Okay, so I'm going to kind of come up here. I could almost just butt that up together, but I want to create a clean cut. So I'm going to come beyond that a little bit, and I'm going to try to find a place here where I can let's see, it might be easier. Yeah, it's easier to go kind of mid stripe here like this. So let's line this up so that that pattern looks about right. Just a hair over here. Okay, and so that looks like I want it to. And I'm going to take this tape and just go right over the top of that. Okay, I'm going to hold all of that in place so that it's going to stay together in the pattern alignment that I want it to. And then I'm going to take it to my trimmer and I'm going to cut this off. Okay. Before I do that though, I am going to trim the top of this so it'll sit in my trimmer straight. Just going to line that up and just trim that off there. Okay. There we go. Because I want to cut both pieces of paper at the same time in an effort to get a very clean match, because I'm going to butt those pieces together and I want them to match up. Okay. So get my trimmer. I'm going to come in here and I want to go just past that edge, but not so far past that I'm missing the underneath piece of paper here. Okay. So edge is right there. So let's do it like there. Okay. Just like that. So we cut off a little bit from the underneath side, but that was in an effort to match up the patterns, okay? So now what we should have, as we take the tape off here, is we should have a piece that lines up perfectly when we butt them together. And we do. And that looks really nice. Sometimes if the paper trimmer has like a rough edge or whatever, you want to go along and sort of like rub those fibers in, and they will come together and you aren't even going to notice it at all. It's just going to be great. So now we're going to use the repositionable tape one more time. Okay. And I'm really kind of pushing this together, and I want to tape it together on the front side, and then we'll tape it together on the back side using the double-sided tape. So like I said, this is the way that I found works for me. I'm going to kind of knit those fibers back together. Once I have that lined up exactly where I want it to be, kind of adding some pressure, really pressing them together, then I'm going to put that down. Okay, got it down. And now I'm going to come on the back side with some double-sided tape. And I like to go beyond the edges with the double-sided tape because I want it to go all the way to the edge. Okay. There we go. Now, when I take off this the blue tape, or the mint tape, there we go. Now I've got a pattern that is really hard to tell that I even seamed, that I've done anything to it other than just making sure it's lined up. Now, the only downside of this is that I can't, this is such a long piece, I don't have any paper trimmers that this is going to fit into. So I just take my scissors and I line them right up against the edge of that's already there. And I'm just sort of like eyeballing this across here to make that, to continue that straight cut. I'm going to come on the other side, and this one's a little bit easier because all I have to do is just cut off the tape. There we go. Get that somewhere else so it doesn't stick to something I don't want it to. And now I'm going to cut the paper. Well, I'm going to mark where I want to cut the paper so that I can line it all up so my pattern is continuous. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get my edges lined up over here. Again, I do a very small reveal. I just like it. I think it's neat and clean, and it's just the style. It's just style. It's a stylistic difference, right? Some people do it differently, and that's okay. And you may be someone who wants to do it differently, and that's okay. But I want to make sure that I am lined up all the way across. And sometimes it's hard to see where that is. So I like to take a piece of white paper and go underneath that page just so that I can kind of get a general idea of how much reveal I've got going all the way around here. That's pretty good. Okay. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going, oh, of course I wiggled it. If you find that it's moving a lot, again, this stuff is your friend. So you can just sort of tack down a corner there. There we go. Tack it down over here. Okay, I like that. Okay, and so I want to take it almost all the way to where the page, oh, my head's getting in the way, sorry. So see where the page attaches to the hinge? There's like a 1/16 of an inch space between there. I don't want to take it past that. In fact, I want to go about a 1/16 of an inch to the other side of where that hinge is. So, you know, where the page ends. So I'm going to go about right there. Okay. Once I have that in place, now I'm going to scooch this over to just inside of the gusset. Okay. And I'm going to mark where this needs to cut to fall just inside of that gusset, okay? And then I'm going to move that mark over to just inside of where that page ends on where it attaches to the hinge. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to mark right where I want it to end with the same amount of reveal on the page. So I've got 1, 2, 3 marks on where I want to cut, and when they kind of split apart and we place them in on the page, it's all going to line everything up. So let's make 3 quick little cuts. Cut this end piece here, and I'm going kind of the outside of that one because I want to make sure if I need to trim some more off, I can. That one. And that one. And so now we've got the piece that goes in the gusset. And we have the piece that goes on this side. And we have the piece that goes on this side. And it's just like a continuation of the pattern. And it shows up a little bit in the plaid. I mean, obviously, you know, or the gingham, you can see how the lines are going to continue. But where this really works great is if you have one of those, you know, patterns that's like a rolling hills or something like that. And if you have more than one piece, you can sort of add more to that. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes the pattern ends in such a way that you can't. But I like it. It's probably fussy and fidgety and certainly not necessary, but I like it. And I wanted to show you real quick how it was that I attached, made the pages, you know, made the pieces of paper longer than they originally come. So I am going to ink these edges and glue them down. I've already inked all my edges on my other pattern pieces, and I'm going to just basically glue them all onto the pages. And I will fast forward through that, and you guys can listen to some music, and I'll be right back.
Slow down. Fireplace, do you know how? Piles of paper, my desk is out. Who will care for the world out? Rest with me, close to curtains. Brew some herbal tea. Reach out for me. Take my hand and lead even when I disagree. Oh, how I love when it rains outside. And it's okay to slow the ride. Books I forget about, but who care for the world now? Rest with me, close the curtains, brew some herbal tea. Reach out for me. Take my hand and lead even when I disagree. Maybe then I can relax. Maybe then I can relax. Bring my heels in my bed. The curtain, brew some herbal tea. Reach out for me. Oh, and take my hand and lead even when I disagree. Rest with me. Close the curtain, brew some herbal tea.
Okay, so we now have all of our pattern paper added to these 2-page elements, and I think it turned out really cute. I'm very happy with the way these pages look, and because we were a little thoughtful about how we were placing the magnets, they're not going to stick together. In fact, there's kind of a repulsion going on there, which is great because that means as I'm turning the pages, they're not going to stick together. I can open and close them without having any issues with them, and it's not interfering with the magnet behind. So I'm really happy with the way all of that turned out. Now we're going to move on to pages 4 and 5. And for those pages, we're going to need just a few pieces here, just for a refresher over here. Pages 4 and 5 is just another simple pull out. It's just that instead of it being top to bottom, we're just going side to side on each of these. And so for these pages, we've got 2 pieces that are 2 1/4 by 4 3/4, and 2 pieces that are 6 by 4 1/4. And we are going to grab our scoreboard here. And we are going to grab our scoreboard here, and we are going to score on the 6-inch side. We're going to score at 5 1/2. Or a 1/2 inch from, oops, a 1/2 inch from the side. Either way you prefer. I like scoring, I like backing it down a 1/2 inch because I'm right-handed and it's hard for me to get in this corner over here. 2 pieces, 2 1/4 by 3 3/4. On the 3 3/4 inch side, we're going to score at 3 1/4 or a 1/2 inch on both of those. Okay, and so we are going to fold and burnish our score lines. Go ahead and get these. And then we're going to round the corners opposite the score lines on all 4 pieces. And again, that's optional. If you don't like, you don't want to mess with doing the corner rounding, you don't have to. It can be a little bit of a chore depending on how many you've got to do and all of the matting pages you add to it. But like I said before, I really like it because it gives it a finished edge, but it also keeps those corners from getting too beat up prematurely. I mean, it's paper, so it eventually starts kind of wearing, but I have just found that if I round the corners, it wears a little better. So these are going to be attached. This piece here gets attached to the front, and I chose to wrap it instead of just gluing it directly on top. I chose to, you can see it like this. I chose to take that fold and wrap it around instead of gluing it on top. I don't know why, I just did. So I'm going to go ahead and attach those. I want to center it if at all possible. So kind of get a general idea of where it's going to be. That looks pretty good. I draw a line right there. Then I'm just going to match this up and next up that line. Okay, so I'm going to put these on. I'm going to put glue on the underneath side of this flap. And I don't know, I guess my thinking was that this is something that you pull away, although the other one you do too, and I still put it on top, but I don't know. I don't have a reason. I just did it this way. You can glue it on top, you can glue it on bottom, just, however you want to do it. But I did push it up against, so that that's in there. It does kind of create a little place where it sticks out, but I don't mind it. I kind of like it. And so I'm going to glue this one down. Find my mark. I'm not quite on it. There we go. Press it down. Okay. Hi, crafty friends. I have a bit of a problem that I'm trying to correct here. Remember this book? This was the one that we were just doing the tutorial on that was based on this book that I made as a project share. And now you're asking me, what is this book? Well, the video that I was recording for the last half of this one, it deleted. I don't know what happened to it. I don't know where it went, but I was editing and it's gone. So I believe we left off, we had completed these pages on pages 2 and 3, and we had just made these units for pages 4 and 5. I didn't have enough paper to do a third one with this same collection. So now we're going to work on another collection, and much the same as I did in the one that I began this video with, I cut this decorative element out of the title page of this collection. It's again another Echo Park collection, so the colors are very similar. The color palette is very similar. This one had a different designer name on it. I can't remember it. I will look it up and I'll write it on here. But her name was here at the bottom as the designer. And in order to cover that up, I just cut a strip of some green pattern paper and then the strip of flowers. I put some bling on it. Honestly, I started with the bling because I had a little smudge here. And so I was covering up the smudge with some bling. And I think it looks really good. Did a similar thing on the spine, just sort of bringing you up to speed on this particular design. Very similar design on the spine and also on the back here. Obviously use different paper. I don't have the yellow, or I didn't have enough of the yellow. I wanted to use some inside of the book as well. So that's where we are right now. And I'm going to go ahead and pick up on pages 4 and 5, I believe is what we were on. And like I said, we went ahead and used the label from the front for the front cover element, and I really do like the way that turned out. I also found this Spring Fling collection that's also by Lori Whitlock in my stash, and this is a big one. It's got the 48 pieces in there. It's kind of designed for doing cards. It has a whole bunch of these, pages that look like this, but the elements in here are really cute. I especially like these flowers, and the plaid is really cute. So I'm going to kind of switch gears. We're going to use a combination of this for the 6x6 pages and this for the 12x12 that I'm going to fill in with. And then if I really need to get into something else, I did find some of these others. I've got some Doodlebug dots and stripes and the Swiss dots, and then also a Echo Park dots and stripes on 6x6s that if need be, I can pull some pages from that to use. So now that I've brought you up to speed on why does everything look different, let's go ahead and pick up where we left off. Okay, so we are ready to pick up on pages 4 and 5, and we left off where we made these pullouts. We had completed the pullouts here, and we needed to go ahead and attach them to our pages. But before I do that, I want to make sure that this much the same way I lined up the magnet with pages 1 and 2 to make sure that it wasn't sort of competing with one another, and then also making sure that pages 2 and 3 weren't attracting to each other. I want to make sure that the magnet that I'm including on pages 4 and 5, or specifically page 4, is not going to be placed in a bad spot for this underneath magnet here. So I've gone ahead and put a magnet on here so I could kind of find where it was. And, oops, got to put this on here this way. And that way, once I've glued it down, I'll be able to have the magnet line up in such a way that it's not going to be competing with it or fighting with it or anything like that. So let's go ahead and attach our fold outs here. And then I'm going to put the magnets in place. The magnets are going to go on the back of here, and then the one here on this page here for it to connect down to. And then we'll put another magnet over here and on the back of that flip out as well. There is no magnet on this back page, so we don't have to worry about anything competing with that. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these down, install my magnets, and ink the edges for my pattern paper and glue them down, and I'll be right back.
Look ahead, the sea is calm, and I know we've been through a lot, but just wait. vision that I saw is getting closer every dawn. Ooh, we are dreamers of the shore. Now on this boat, and we all know where we belong. Just wait. Ooh, wait for our home to show on the horizon. Soon we'll be there. Hold on tight. I can smell the shore, it's right in front of us. If we just hold on tight, this vision that I saw is getting closer every dawn. Ooh, we are dreamers of the shore. When we can't read the sky, we just sail with the wind that we've got. And when we're drowning in doubt, just keep on believing. We are dreamers of the shore.
Okay, so we have now finished pages 4 and 5, and they're just these little pull-outs here. And I like it a lot. I think it's really cute. And I think it's really interesting that while these are two different collections, the colors are identical. And even the birds are very similar stylistically. These are a little bit, chubbier. This is a little longer bird, but they look so similar to me. I think I'd be hard pressed to know that these weren't even from the same collection. So let's go ahead and move on to pages 6 and the inside back cover, which is our twist and pop-up element. And for page 6, you are going to need one piece of cardstock that is 3 3/4 by 6 1/2, one that is a tag piece that can be anything out of scraps. I chose to do one that is 5 1/4 by 3 1/4, and then I'm going to make a little booklet, and I'm going to start with a piece that's 8 1/2 by 3 1/4 for the booklet. So let's grab our scoreboard here. Okay, so for that angled pocket on page 6, we are going to need a piece of cardstock that is 3 3/4 inches by 6 1/2 inches. And on the 6 1/2 inch side, we're going to score at 1/2 inch. And then we're going to turn it so that score mark is at the top on the 3 3/4 inch side, and we're going to score it at 1/2 inch as well. And that's going to give us 2 fold lines on this lower left-hand corner of this pocket that we're going to create. And so we're going to go ahead and score and burnish those lines. And then I'm going to miter the corner so that it will lay a little bit more flat. I'm just going to give it a slight angle cut, move the pages about, and then do that again. Okay, just like that. And then we're going to measure over. So we've got our fold here on this lower left-hand corner, right? And then on the upper left-hand side, we're going to measure over 1/2 inch, and we're going to make a little tick mark. And then on the lower right-hand side, we're going to measure up 1/2 inch and make a little tick mark as well. And then we're going to use those tick marks to cut an angle. So I'm simply going to line up that top tick mark right along the edge. I'm going to pivot it around until I get that bottom tick mark lined up. Make sure my top tick mark hasn't moved. You kind of have to wiggle it back and forth sometimes. And then just give it a nice firm little cut there. I'm going to come back here on these folds, and I'm going to give a slight angle behind both of those folds. Okay, and so that's our pocket piece. But I want to go ahead and cut the piece for the back before I put the pocket piece on. I want to make sure that I've got the pieces cut continuously for this back piece. Okay, so in an effort to have a continuous pattern carry from one page to the other, I did go ahead and seam this paper so that that stripe would continue on through. And I'm going to place the seam on the right-hand side because I do have a twist and pop card that's going to cover this. So there's really not going to be much of a chance that you're going to notice that seam over there on that. So now that I have a piece that's long enough, I'm going to go ahead and lay it out on my page or my back inside cover, and I'm going to make a little tick mark on where I want to cut that. I could follow the measurements that I've got written down in my cutting guide, which would be just fine, but I'm just going to go ahead and go by lining this up and making a little tick mark. And then I'm going to continue to make a tick mark over here for this gusset piece, okay? And then I'm going to scoot that on over, and then I can see that I've got plenty of room there. Actually, I don't need to make that gusset piece tick mark yet. I just need to make this first cut here, which is for this back inside cover. So we're going to cut that piece off. And then I'm going to attach this piece down so that I've got it in a fixed place before I line up the other piece, because I got to trim some off at the top and the bottom. The back inside cover is 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches. The pages are 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. So I need to reduce the size, but I don't want to just cut that reduction off of the top or the bottom alone. I need to cut it in such a way that it lines up with the stripe. Otherwise, it was kind of pointless for me to try to line up this paper to begin with. So let's go ahead and glue this one down. So that looks really good. And then now what we need to do is we need to figure out how to trim this so that it continues to match that pattern. So I'm going to sort of hold it up here to where the pattern lines are. And I'm going to make my marks from the back side, meaning from back here, because I can see where the page ends easier back here. And I'm just going to make a couple little marks here on the top and the bottom. That's going to be what we're going to trim off. And you could just, measure it and trim it, but the reality is that your hinges are probably not going to be, they're going to be pretty close to centered, but they're not going to be like 100% centered up and down on the page. So making that little mark is going to be beneficial. Okay, so now when that sits in place there, that's going to continue that pattern through very nicely. I'm going to go ahead and make that tick mark on where the piece is going to go to cover the gusset. I'm going to give that a quick little cut. That one's going to sit right there very nicely. And then this one should fit, but I think we've got a little bit to trim off. Yeah, I think we want to trim off just a little bit off of this end. Let's see. That looks pretty good. Now, what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to go ahead and put the background paper inside of the envelope and glue it down to into the pocket, not the envelope, but into the inside of the pocket, and glue the pieces that wrap around to create the pocket on the back side, so that I won't have anything in the way when I want to start putting things in and out of here. There's not going to be anything that's going to catch on because I've got it sort of encased like that. And I'm just making sure that with the folds in place that I'm still going to line up where I want it to be. And it looks good. I think everything's really good. So I'm going to go ahead and ink these edges. I think it just gives it a nice finish. I don't necessarily like it when the edges have been inked in such a way that they're kind of grungy looking. I know a lot of people do that, and it looks nice when they do it, but it makes me feel like I just got my pages all dirty. So I don't really like that. So for me, I just simply run the ink cube over the edges just to sort of give it a nice definition and clean, give it some continuity from where I have those that white core showing. Okay, so that's good. I want to go ahead and glue this one down so I have kind of a reference when I'm laying down the other paper. Because it's closest to these patterns. I feel like I can line it up a little bit better. Well, looks to me like I might have cut too much off of that one. Oh no, we're not going to peel it up. It's going to be fine. Sometimes you just have to say it's good enough. It does feel like it's a little lower than I would have wanted it to be, but I think it's fine. Yeah, looks good. And then on this one, we're going to, I want to make sure I've got this aligned correctly, right? So that pattern is going to line up very nicely. And I'm simply going to push it into the corner as far as I can and kind of fold it over till I can't push it anymore, and then push it down until it won't go any further where it's hitting that fold down here. Okay. And once those are in place, I'm simply going to put a little bit of glue on the back side of here. It doesn't even need to be a lot because that's not really what's going to be holding it down. I'm just doing this to tack it into place more than anything. Okay. And then I just want to dry fit it very quickly. I think we're doing really well. And so now I'm going to put glue all over the back, including these flaps for the pocket that we folded around to the back. And then we're just going to glue that right back down onto page 6. And then we'll make a tag and a little booklet to stick into the pocket. Oh, and we need to put the paper over the pocket, the matting on the pocket itself. Okay, so I'm really lining it up with these edges. I definitely want to clamp this. It's a lot of paper there, and I just want it to really have good contact. Especially because those pockets, they're kind of bulky there, and so it likes to pull up, especially by the edges. Make sure I'm lined up there well. I am like that. Oops. Once they've been on there for even a couple seconds, it will start to grab hold. So I can sort of move them around. Whoops. Good grief. I've got butterfingers today. Things are just sort of slipping around. Okay, I think that's all really good. Just making sure we've got good contact. Looking great. And it's really just that simple. I'll just pull them off. And it may seem like, wow, what kind of a difference could that be making? But it really does. It makes sure that I've got really tight contact there. So I don't have enough hands to hold it all. I have to put other things in place. So now for this pocket, we're going to start with a piece that is 6 inches by 3 1/8 of an inch. And we are going to just lay it on top of the pocket that we have and give a little tick mark where we want it to, where we want to begin our angle. And it looks like I'm actually a little bit long here, so I'm going to trim off a little bit. Most of the measurements in the cutting guide are going to be, if anything, on the long side, so that you can then, dry fit and adjust accordingly. So let's put this one back on here. Nope, a little bit more. Yep, that's good. Okay, so now I want to make my second little tick mark here. And that's going to be right there. And then we're simply going to do the same thing we did for the pocket, where we're going to line up both of the tick marks on the cutting edge of your paper cutter or your paper trimmer or whatever it is that you're using. And then let's test that and see. It lines up very well. I do have a little bit of a pencil mark here. I'm going to erase that because that's going to show, and erase my little tick marks here. Okay. And then we're going to ink our edges, and then I'm going to glue this one down. And essentially page 6 is done now. But like I said, I do want to go ahead and make those, inserts for the pocket because they're part of page 6, right? So here we go. Glue this down. Give it a nice little burnishing. Okay, that is good. So now our pieces that we've got one just as a tag at 5 1/4 by 3 1/4, and I'm simply going to round the corners on it and call it good. I have really pretty tag punches I could use. I have other things, but this is a really simple, clean lined, album. I mean, just overall the lines on it. It's just a very simple, neat and clean album. So I don't want to do anything too ornate anyway. So we'll just do that for our tag, and it fits nicely in there. And then for the booklet, it's 8 1/2 by 3 3/4. And this was literally just a scrap that I had. And I decided that was the perfect size for my booklet. I'm going to score it at 4 1/4, which is 1/2 of the length of the 8 1/2. We're going to fold and burnish it. And then I'm going to round the corners opposite of the fold line. We're going to cover it with some scrap pattern paper and call it good. Oh, but I will also put a piece of white paper on the inside, because if we want to use this as any journaling, there needs to be a white paper. You could still put a photo on the inside opposite the page where there's, the white paper. Or, you could go ahead and put a photo over that white paper and treat it as a mat. But I just want to have the option to treat this as a journaling card if we want to. For the back inside cover, you're going to need one piece that is 2 1/4 by 3 3/4, two pieces that are both 2 1/4 by 9 inches, and one piece that is 4 1/4 by 12 inches. And we're going to grab our scoreboard, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the sort of the card base for the twist and pop element. So you're going to put the 4 1/4 by 12 inch piece in on the 12 inch side, and you're going to score it in half at 6. Let's go ahead and score these while we've got them out. The 2 1/4 by 9 inch one, you're going to put in with the 2 1/4 at the top, and you're going to score it in half lengthwise at 1 1/4. Oh, I'm sorry, 1 1/8. And then we're going to turn it, and you're going to score it in half widthwise at 4 1/2. Okay. And then the next one, you're going to put in at 9 inches across the top, and you're going to score it in quarters. So we're going to score this at 4 1/2, at 2 1/4, and 6 3/4. So that's going to give us 4 2¼ inch wide squares, basically. And then for the piece that is 2¼ inches by 3¾ inch, you're going to put it at the 3¾ inch at the top and score it at 1/2 inch or at 3¼ Either way get you the same thing. And so we're going to fold and burnish our score lines. Making sure that everything is, staying straight and true as we're folding it. Now, on the one that was scored in quarters, the 9-inch piece across that gave us 4 2¼ inch squares, we're going to score this valley, mountain, valley. Sometimes it's just easier to fold it in half and then fold it in quarters rather than to even score it. Not sure how I got off like that. Yeah, and meet these sides. There we go. And then this one isn't quite far enough. Whoops, let's try this again. Trim off a little bit here. Okay, now, so this one is valley, mountain, valley, okay? And then for the one that we made across in the middle of, and by the way, I have a full tutorial on this twist and pop element also on my website. I will link that in the description notes below if you want to go through kind of a slower process video of how that's made. But they're really simple. There's a couple things that seem a little confusing at first, but once you sort of figure it out, it's actually really simple. We're going to fold this in half length and widthwise. And then we're going to twist it so that this fold line meets over onto this fold line. So essentially we've started with the cross and now we're going to put an X through the middle of the cross by folding it. I'm going to kind of flip it over, make sure we're lined up on the other side too. We are. Make sure we didn't get too far off on this one. There we go. And then you're going to do the same thing again for the other way. We're going to twist it so that this top score line meets up with the left-hand score line now. And make an X in the middle of this. Boy, I don't know how I got off so much there. There we go. In the middle of the X we'll make an X in the middle of the cross that we folded. Good grief, I do need to eat something, I think. So now what you have is something where if you were to squeeze these sides, the sides that are that come out here to the right and the left, and make these peaks come together, then you're going to end up with something that looks like this. And I've heard it called a house. I've heard it called an arrow. I've heard these described as being legs, basically, but this is what this is going to look like, okay? And wow, I was going to show you that something that always happens that didn't just happen. Almost always you're going to have one of these legs be a little longer than the other because the process of folding it sort of stretches out the fibers. I've never had one come out perfectly straight before, and this one did, so I feel like that should be noted. And then you're going to trim off just the tiniest little bit of the tip there. You've got a lot of paper. You've got like 4 layers of paper all in this little tiny spot, and you're just going to trim that off to give it a little bit of relief. And then we're going to round our corners. So this is the pop-up element here. Okay, these 2 pieces are what makes our pop-up element. I feel like I haven't been explaining this very well. I do have another process video that I will link below in case you are interested, but I do also feel like I need to back up and explain this a little better because I started going too fast. So these 2 pieces here are what make your twist and pop element mechanism, okay? This one is the one that's going to pop up, and in this case, it's going to pop up in a vertical orientation out of the page like this. And I want to round all of the corners for each of these 2¼ by 2¼ sections. And the easiest way for me to do that is to simply get my corner chomper on the 1/4 inch side and just go around all 4 corners with it folded up. Now, this is a great tool. It cuts through a lot of layers, but the artisan cardstock is pretty hefty cardstock. So I'm just going to reduce it back down to maybe 2 at a time and just check. And I think I'm good. I think I've got a clean cut on all of them. Well, this one. So check yours. You might have some fuzzies, and if you do, you can simply go back around them like that. Okay. So we also, because we're rounding these corners, we're going to have to round the 2 outside corners of these legs. And that's the ones, not the one that has the fold side on it, but the side of the 2 legs that are open, where the 2 pieces of paper come together. And so we're just going to give a quick little corner round on both of those as well. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to attach these 2 pieces together. And how we're going to do that is we're going to open up this little kind of house or arrow fold. And we're going to open it up so that the triangles are on the bottom. You have like these 2 flat triangles here. They're going to sort of be on the bottom. And you're going to have the folds from each side pointing up. So you've got the crease in the middle, the fold pointing up, okay? This piece is valley, mountain, valley, okay? And we're simply going to glue them on top of each other in 2 spots. Now, the first thing you're going to do is on the upper left-hand corner, you're going to put a dollop of glue on this piece, okay? And then you're going to take your series of squares here, again, valley, mountain, valley, and we're going to connect this top left corner of the squared folded piece to the top left corner of this rectangle one that sort of creates that house element. Words are not coming out well for me today. Sorry. Okay. And then you're going to put a little dollop of glue on the bottom right-hand corner. And I'm talking like the lower third of the whole height of the piece here. But that bottom right-hand corner, so below the fold line, but quite a bit below the fold line. And then you're going to connect both of these pieces together as well. So you're going to meet up those corners and connect them together. Give it a nice little burnishing. And the reason I like this is, see, these pieces are always going to line up perfectly because they're the same size. So when you glue them down, they're going to be fine. But the series of folding and folding them separately means that if you squeeze this together now, it's going to twist closed and you're going to have one of the legs on the top and one of them on the bottom, but it's always going to be lined up perfectly. So now we're going to set this one aside. We're going to take the card element that's going to hold the twist and pop here, and we're going to round the corners opposite the fold. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and round these as well while I'm at it. And then we're going to put some paper on this one. We're going to create it as sort of a standalone card. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to use kind of a heavier magnet over here because I want it to be able to grab hold of, through the thickness of, it doesn't have to grab through the thickness, but there's going to be a lot of paper inside of there. And it just needs to be able to be substantial enough for that. Also, this bigger magnet here is a 2mm by 10mm magnet, and that extra millimeter of height is going to help to offset the thickness, you know, of this twist and pop here. So it's going to be almost flush with that. I need the magnet to be up high enough to be able to catch the paper above it. So that's why I'm going to go for a bigger magnet there. And then we'll go ahead and glue these pieces down. So this is what we now have. We have a basically just a card element that opens up like this, okay? And what we need to do is we need to put our twist and pop element inside of here. We need to encase it inside so that when the card opens, it pops out. Now, a lot of times you may have seen on other ones, I've put the decorative paper on here before I put it in the card. I'm not going to do that on this card because it's a side open card and because I want this to pop to where it comes up and down. I just want to make sure I don't accidentally get it in upside down and end up with my, you know, lettering going the wrong way. So I'm going to put this in first and then I'll glue them on afterwards. And how you do that is you're going to scooch this all the way over. Remember, we cut off this little tiny tip here. Well, I'm going to push this. I'm going to center it top to bottom. Okay, so I'm centered this way. I've got the arrow part or the triangle part pointed towards the fold, and I'm going to push it over as if I'm imagining that tip were still there. It's gone, but I'm imagining it were still there, and I'm going to imagine that tip would hit the very center of that fold. Okay, and so when I do that, then I know it's going to open up just right. So let's get this centered top to bottom. That looks good to me. I'm going to apply the glue on the triangle piece only, just on the triangle here. And I don't want a lot of glue. I just want it covering all of it. And then I'm going to close the card up, give it a nice little burnishing, hold it there for a second. Okay, and then I'm going to turn it over and open it up from the other side and apply glue on the triangle on this side as well. Okay. And then we're going to close it up. Again, giving it a nice good burnishing. And we really want to let this sit for a minute before we start pulling at it because you could really tug that open. But the good news is now I have pretty much all of my bulk in there. I still need to add these, but that's not going to be too bad. And so I think I can go ahead and while I'm sort of letting this sort of set, letting the glue set, I can go ahead and add my other magnet. I think we can go ahead and check it. Let's open it up. Yep, see, that's working great. And we're just going to push it all the way down flat. And I'm going to glue these little 2 1/8 by 2 1/8 squares that I rounded all 4 corners on as a matting on each one. Happy with that. I think that turned out really well. Now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and glue it down into our book. So we're going to attach it down right here into the book. And how I'm going to do that is I'm just simply going to put glue all over the back side.
could see yourself. You're sitting there on my chair. I'm staring at you. You don't even notice. Should've told you straight away. You don't have to be afraid anymore. I know you haven't noticed.
Okay, so the last thing that we need to do is we need to make our page inserts. And for those, you're going to have 3 pieces that are 5 1/4 by 4 1/4. And then I use the small We Are Memory Keepers envelope punch board. And I, on 2 of them, I punched on the very edge at the top. And then I scooted it over to the 2-inch mark and gave it another punch. And those are going to stagger for the first and the last ones. Okay. And then for this one, I basically just figured out what's the center of it. So as the center of 5 1/4 is going to be 2 5/8. And then I scooted it over to the 2 5/8 inch mark. And then I backed it down 1 inch because I want it to be 2 inches wide. So I came down to the 1 5/8 and gave it a punch, flipped it over, and gave it another punch at the 1 5/8. And so then that gave me a centered piece. Oh, and then I'm going to cut the remaining portion off here. And I'm going to cut off 1/4 inch up to each of those punches. So I'm going to line up my ruler here on the 1/4 inch mark, and I'm going to drag it to the first one, and then I'm going to go from the second one back to the end. Okay, and I'm just going to use my scissors to sort of connect those lines from the punch board and then from the one I just made with my, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Didn't cut all the way through. That's okay. Just clean it up with my scissors. So we've got that one. And then on these 2, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to line it up to the 1/4 inch line. Boy, I have a lot of glare today. I hope that's not picking up on the camera as a lot of glare too. And then the other one. And then I will finish and clean it up with my scissors. Oops. There we go. To get that connected. And then I didn't really like the way on the end there was like a little notch there, so I just rounded it off. Just gonna, on these 2 here, just kind of rounded off that end. Go ahead and connect this one. There we go. And then I'm going to use my punch board again. There's a little corner rounder attachment on here, and it's such a small little, it's like a little baby corner rounder, and I like the way that looks for these page inserts. It's just very subtle. Oops, get it in there all the way. There we go. And so I'm going to come around all 4 of these.
Hey, I wish I could show you more, 'cause baby you deserve some more. But still you're here, and that's what I adore. Should've told you straight away everything I have to say, but I'm afraid, and I know you haven't noticed. You know.
Okay, so we have one last piece to put in, and that is the cover for the inside of the spine. And we're going to cut that at 4 3/8 by 1 7/8. And I am going to very quickly ink these edges. Then we're going to give it a quick dry fit and make sure that it fits in there. I'm pretty sure it does, but we always want to make sure. And this is going to slide just right inside of this gusseted hinge attachment system. It's going to sit right in there to cover that little area in there. It's not necessary, but I do think it gives it a nice finish, so I'm going to do it. And it is included in the cutting guide if you choose to. And so we're simply going to slide this piece in here, just like this. And once we get it into place, careful for not to sit up on that accordion fold. I'm just going to come in here with my bone folder and press it into place. And again, while it's not necessary, it probably does add some reinforcement because the attachment will now be encased underneath it, but it's not going anywhere. I don't think it really needs any structural assistance on that. Okay, so this concludes what has felt like the longest tutorial I've ever made. So I apologize. I need to go see in editing how long it actually is. But let's go ahead and do the walkthrough through both of them since you've sort of got a little bit of each. So this is the first one that we started with. And I took you through the first page here. I did go ahead and make the little booklet and a photo mat here to kind of tuck inside of here. This opens down and up. Oh, got some stuff on here and up, just like that. We do have the page inserts in here as well. This one is pretty much identical to the project share one that I did to show you. Just a few minor changes that I made to it, mostly because I didn't have the right paper. These open out. Got another page insert here. Oh, that one's on the back side. There we go. Just like that. Have a couple little, there's a journaling card or a photo mat here that sit in this little pocket. And then we've got our little twist and pop element on the back. And so that was the first one that I started. And then we transitioned over to this one with the pink paper because I didn't get my first one. Half of the video was deleted somehow. And so then we open up. Again, this is the exact same album, just a little few stylistic differences with paper choices. A couple little tuck spots and journaling card elements in here. And then we've got the little page inserts as well. This one I think turned out really cute. I like the color combinations of this one, and I think it just came together really nice. I did have to seam that paper to make it continuous, but I really like the way that looked. In fact, I did that for almost all of them. And then we've got this one here, opens out, and I love these little bird houses. They're super cute. Have another page insert here. Oh, looks like I might have gotten more than just a page insert in there. Yep. Little wayward piece of paper. And then on page 6, we've got another journaling card element right here, and then a little photo mat, some ephemera added on here, and then we've got another twist and pop element. In this one, we went ahead and put the word love on. And so that concludes our tutorial for the 4.5 by 6.5 mini album. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And I hope that you are being kind to yourselves and finding some joy in your journey. Talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.